All right, my name is Tom, and I am the sales manager for Procter & Gamble Chemicals. Just trying to make sure that he's got this thing working, and does he? He doesn't have it plugged in. I need the HDMI. That's it on the floor. Here's the HDMI. Got the HDMI. That is St. Andrews at sunrise.
Function
F7. Is F7? Okay, there we go. Am I good? Good. Okay. All right. Diversity and inclusion. I told you I searched and reapplied for Jeff Schomburger's sales meeting. Can I get your clickers? Jeff Schomburger's sales meeting. And, talk about diversity and inclusion. We've got metrics and stuff that are out there. So, I wanted to make sure we included something on diversity and inclusion in our talks here today. Company's done, when you look at the way that the company thinks about diversity, a lot of it's around gender diversity. And you can see the trends we've made since 2000 with the numbers on female versus male diversity. We've got a team, our manifesto, continue to dialogue on gender equality in our teams and work to do everything we can. The sales function and the company continues to be focused on diversity. What's been our diversity journey? You've seen a lot of this. We go back to our days of the black and white sales organization to bringing women in, using personal computers, and the international diversity that's here today. We even have diversity in the forms of size of people. We are inclusive in P&G Chemicals. You look at the team that we had last year, and things are always changing. When you go back and you look at this team last year, there's people that are no longer here. They've moved on to other things. Let me introduce our guest speaker, and I want to do it using a video. Yeah.
He wonders if he would be able to coexist and have a strong emotional relationship.
I'm not a special ed teacher. I don't know how to make the accommodations that are going to be necessary.
More and more, Nicholas really doesn't have a social life.
He's at high school. It's so superficial and shit.
Sometimes people do not think that these kids that are living with a disability think about those situations.
When I first saw them, I said, what the hell did I do?
A lot of people that probably didn't think you should go to Villanova, would get into Villanova, wouldn't do well at Villanova. Stand back and watch. Just watch.
Maybe inspire other people. Again, if that's his role in life, it's a beautiful thing.
It turned out to be one of the best experiences I've ever had.
I have a kid who can't talk, can't walk, and can't ride at the University of Illinois.
We treat him like everybody else.
I think he's a superstar.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our guest speaker, Frank Kineavy. Let me shut one thing down here. Close that. Come on, Tom. Can you guys help me get his computer? Oh, wait, I got it.
Good afternoon, and I want to thank Tom Nelson for inviting me to speak today about diversity in the workplace and how to best capture the talents and work with people with disabilities to maximize your own team's potential. You just saw a short trailer of a documentary that was done while I was a student at Villanova. Coming Off the VL was a film to address the limitations and challenges that people with disabilities face every day. But maybe more importantly, it highlights society's misguided assumptions about living and working with a disability. The concept of having people in the workforce with disabilities is a new idea that companies are still trying to wrap their heads around. I am a 28-year-old journalist. I am trying to establish a career in the corporate workplace where very few people in my situation have succeeded. Even though the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, made participation in the community more easily accessible for people with disabilities, no law has the ability to change perceptions. People who are built for success don't want to participate in society. They want to thrive in it. For those who have worked with a person with a disability, people often think for that person to go to work every day is an accomplishment. If the employee is really someone who has the ability to bring value to that company, he or she is not content with just showing up and having a full-time job. They are looking to grow and evolve. It is easy to give people with disabilities jobs. It is harder to provide them with careers. But being inclusive isn't a one-way street. Having an open mind about hiring individuals with disabilities shouldn't just serve the purpose of complying with P&G's goals of being known as an inclusive company for public relations purposes. Every company wants to be on a list of best employers to work for because it opens up avenues to new talent that want to work for a company whose beliefs match their own. But just checking the box as an equal opportunity employer isn't enough. Your company has to embrace the positive culture enrichment that comes from having a diverse staff. Diversity includes people of different races, religions, sexual orientation, and disabilities, to name a few. To truly be a great consumer products company, you need to understand your consumers. And if your consumers are well represented in your workplace, your company will be enriched. You're not just hiring a diverse group, you are looking for the best of the best who also happen to be of very different backgrounds. I believe that when you open your eyes to working with people with disabilities, and you really get to know them on a personal basis, you will realize there is enormous untapped potential. I'll share a little about my background and how I navigated through school, graduated from Villanova, and have built my professional career. I grew up in Seabird, a 1 square mile beach town on the Jersey Shore. For my early education, my parents initially wanted me to attend a specialized school for people with disabilities, where I could receive the proper therapies I needed: physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Once I reached school age, the best decision my parents made for me was to attend my local public school. I was the first person with both a physical and communicational disability to attend Seeker Elementary. My parents had to fight to get the school to put in a ramp and widen the front doors to welcome me. With the unrelenting support from my parents, who maintain an open dialogue with the school, the majority of the tools I needed scholastically, including communication devices, equipment for walking, as well as an aide who supported my academics by taking notes and dictation, were readily accessible. The school district also provided the therapies I needed. However, this did not come easily. My mother was my strongest and most tireless advocate, whether it was pushing the school to make their main entrance more accessible or insisting they had a handicapped parking space for inclement weather. She drove me to school trips, even though she suggested a handicap-accessible bus. She proposed an accessible school entrance through the junior high doors, so I could enter school with peers instead of underclassmen. These may seem like minor details, but to any student that has faced or will face challenges during their developmental years, Affecting change and having these obstacles leveled means having confidence and faith that your opportunity to succeed is equal to your peers, and it renews your focus to succeed. High school was equally challenging, but some of the best years of my life. While some of the students I went to elementary school were at my school, a whole new group of people who had never interacted with a nonverbal classmate or a classmate in a wheelchair were apprehensive. But as I had developed some great friendships as a youngster, I now was changing their views of people with disabilities. I firmly believe that my high school classmates and staff would be much more open to working with someone with a disability merely because they got to know me well on a personal level. The stereotypes they initially had would change, especially regarding my ability. I was in challenging honors classes right next to them, and my grades were impeccable. The connotation of having a disability as having less than others was changed dramatically when my classmates saw how successful I was, despite having to work harder to overcome the physical challenges. As my family and I were preparing my college search, we spoke with many of the directors of disability services, and they all had the same narrative. They spoke of how lonely college could be for students with disabilities. They shared how most students with disabilities stay in their rooms and don't socialize with their fellow classmates. As a typical 17-year-old who thought he was invincible, I had the attitude that that will not be me. I was wrong. My first 2 years of college were probably the toughest 2 years of my life. Although I was gaining national recognition from my work with the Villanova basketball team, especially after ESPN came to campus to film a college game day feature about me and a fellow classmate, the words of those aforementioned college directors definitely rang true. My day-to-day life as a college student was neither what I wanted nor what I expected it to be. Aside from hanging out with a couple guys on my floor, I didn't have many social outlets. The majority of my time during the school week was spent with adults, whether it was my aide for schoolwork, my live-in aide, or tutors. I did not have a lot of time to meet new people or socialize with my classmates, as keeping up with my classwork took up a majority of my time. Even when I had time, I struggled with how I could approach people, as they were unfamiliar with my disability and whether they could communicate with me. How could I break the ice? What happened to me over the following 3 years at Villanova is an example of how, if you empower employees to challenge their comfort zone and allow space and guidance, they can turn their ideas into reality. They can make the community a better place. Once again, obstacles were being leveled with a focus on social interaction. At the end of my sophomore year, a young lady approached Greg Hanna and Steve McWilliams, both of the Office of Students with Disabilities, with a concept that centered on students helping students. Her idea was for able-bodied students, through various service programs on campus, to replace adult aides in the classroom and to assist their classmates with disabilities in taking notes, typing papers, and working on projects. This idea quickly became a student initiative known as Level. Each week, I would have 10 to 15 of my peers come into my dorm room to work on assignments. Eventually, these working relationships turned into some of my closest school friendships. Working on an essay in my room turned into watching a movie on a Friday night with a group of people I had worked with during the week. Building relationships with my college peers gave me the confidence that I could build those same relationships in the professional world. Many of you may have never worked or even met a person with a physical disability, such as mine, but I hope that when you get to know someone on a personal level, your preconceived ideas of what they can and can't do disappear. Let's talk about preconceived images of salespeople to give an example. Just those 2 words triggers a host of adjectives that might come to mind. Can you think of any? Abrasive, egotistical, insincere are a few. Maybe even to the level of semi or sleazy. Now naturally, that doesn't describe the P&G Chemicals sales group made up of talented professionals with the highest integrity. But given the fact that a used car salesman is technically in sales, you can understand how preconceived ideas of how a person you may never have met influences your mindset. Similarly, when someone says, "Hey, we hired a guy with a disability," what might you subconsciously think? "Oh great, I'm going to have to pick up the slack if they can't get the work done." Well, I'm here to tell you that you might be surprised that individual actually has incredible talent and creative ideas that even you had not thought of. They could easily help your team to achieve new levels in sales. You're not bringing an anchor onto the team so that you can say you have a diverse workplace. You should be looking for a shining star that just so happens to look different than you. When asked to speak here today, I thought I should understand P&G's corporate mission, so I looked it up and here is what I found. Procter & Gamble's vision is to be the best consumer products and services company in the world. Your mission is to provide branded products and services of superior quality and value that improve the lives of the world's consumers now and for generations to come. But in order to improve the lives of consumers, don't you need to understand them? If you never met or worked with an individual with a disability, then you don't completely understand your consumers. Of the 300 million people in the United States alone, 25% or 1 in 4 adults self-identify as having a disability. So, that means there are roughly 75 million people out there that you may not be capturing in your market analysis. And therefore, your mission to improve the lives of your consumers might only address 75% of your market. Another presentation I happened to see discussed the values at P&G. It stated that the values at P&G are its people and the values by which we live. We attract and recruit the finest people in the world. We build our organization from within, promoting and rewarding people without regard to any difference unrelated to performance. We act on the conviction that the men and women of Procter & Gamble will always be our most important asset. How can you recruit the finest people in the world if you are eliminating 25% of the workforce that have a disability? In the United States alone, don't you think there are some rock stars that could add to your team of those 75 million with disabilities? P&G has implemented some amazing programs such as your People with Disabilities Network and Flex at Work that allow employees with disabilities to flourish. It is important for your employees with disabilities to believe you recognize they have career goals because, like anyone else, when I feel I am being pigeonholed at work, my ability to pour my heart and soul into my job is limited. Your CEO, David Taylor, said it best when he said, "By working side by side with others to address these challenges head on, we believe we can create better workplaces and stronger communities where all people are welcome, valued, and respected." I hope that my story has enabled you to see beyond any preconceived thoughts about what it is like to add people with disabilities to your talented sales teams. When you get to know anyone on a personal level that doesn't exactly look like you, it is much easier to realize that having a diverse team takes your sales force to a whole new level. Thank you for having me today. Of course, I will continue to follow your progress as your company becomes one of those best employers to work for. Employment for people with disabilities is very important to me. I have developed an employment program where young professionals with disabilities will go through a year rotational program. My hope is that other companies will come to understand what Procter & Gamble has gotten that people with disabilities can contribute to corporate America. One more shameless plug. For the past 7 years, I have been writing my first screenplay with one of my mentors. We are in the fundraising stage. When you get a chance, please go to Kickstarter and search The Way We Roll to follow our story. I will be happy to answer, with the assistance of my scribe, any questions you have.
Ladies and gentlemen. Kineavy. How's that for a story, huh? You know, Frank, in terms of his shameless plug, we're going to do it. We're just going to look real quick at his, let's see where it is. Come on, here's where we roll. We're going to click. Here we go. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go.
This is my story. I came home one day to find my father and sole caretaker dead on our living room floor. He was shot by 2 mob associates who were ransacking our house. Their mission was to find the millions of dollars in cash allegedly stolen by my father from the mob. I panicked. As I tried to leave the house, one of the hitmen stopped me and told his associate that the kid has to go too. They get into an argument and I hear one say, "The kid is disabled. He can't talk." "No, don't." Then I hear a gunshot. It had to be my lucky day because he shot his partner instead of me. My savior surmises that my mother, who left us years ago and has been living in Florida, has all of the money. Thinking we can still cash in on me, he puts me in my van and we set out on an amazing journey to find my mother, while being chased by the mob and the feds. I am going to stop there because I do not want to spoil the surprise ending of this Barrio Meets of Mice and Men challenging, heartwarming, and hilarious road movie journey. I am the co-writer of this movie script currently entitled The Way We Roll. This script, which is 7 years in the making and written one letter at a time, is partially based on the challenges and blessings in my life. My partners and I are raising the initial funds to get the process of making this film, to use a disabled term, rolling. Thank you very much for donating to my Kickstarter. Please continue to follow and join me on my journey to fulfill my dream.
Do we have any questions for young Frank? Just how did I get to meet Frank? Frank is the cousin of my oldest son's wife. Frank lives a mile and a half from my house. Frank is a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Frank and I have gone to Giants-Eagles games, and unfortunately the last Giants-Eagles game we went to, the Eagles happened to win the game. But, you know, Frank can get you into amazing places. You know, when you show up with Frank, everybody wants to help Frank. So we were out on the field, you know, I got the pictures and the whole thing. So, you know, it's great to know a guy like Frank. So, Jody, we had a couple questions that we had given beforehand.
So just to get the Q&A started, Tom and I brainstormed a couple questions that we emailed to Frank, and he responded. So I'll read those, and then he's ready to answer questions live, any questions that you have. So Tom and I said, or asked Frank, how do people help you bring out your best? And here's his response. I'm someone that thrives on being with people. From the time I was young, I enjoyed being around others. The people who I consider to be my closest friends are the ones who treat me like I am like anyone else, and that is so important in the workplace. Nothing is worse than feeling your coworkers, who you have to collaborate with every day to be successful, see and treat you differently. There's only so much I can do when other people put limits on me. Another question we asked Frank is, what kind of consumer products could P&G offer that would improve your life? And he responded, every day, other people have to listen to your sales pitch. Today, you have to listen to mine. I would like the opportunity to present my internship program for people with disabilities to Procter & Gamble. I feel this internship program has the potential to be as great long-term as any product Procter & Gamble could offer for people with disabilities. And we saw and we said, we need some consumer product ideas as well, because we gotta sell something too in this. We asked him one more question. What actions can P&G take to better enable people of all abilities? He responded, helping to open the door and break down the barriers for the disabled to become more involved in the workforce and have meaningful careers. There's a tremendous underutilization of their talents and an incredible need to focus on their abilities. So those are the questions Tom and I came up with.
And here's what we're going to do. We got to get out of the room. So Frank's going to join us at the Molly Pitcher. Take some time to think about your questions, and we'll meet up there at 6:30 for dinner and celebrate our annual recognition dinner. So guys, again, give it up for Frank Kineavy. All right, well, we'll see you in 1 hour up at the Molly Pitcher for our annual recognition celebration.